talk about education, but I just got motivated, and so here I am. So you know what? I'm going to stop right there because I know a lot of folks have questions here and came to have an interaction, and we can talk about a variety of different issues that may be of interest to you. Everything's on the table. Ask whatever you want to ask. Of course, I may not answer everything, but I'll do my best. Any questions?
Back here.
Yes, sir.
Santorum, this is more of a kind of an in-depth question, and please, it's not a gotcha question because I love everything you've done for us. But I noticed, I was just looking over your record, and you were on the Senate Committee on Banking in the early 2000s, and I know that Bush administration officials went up there to try to get a hold of this Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the mortgage crisis thing before it came to fruition. Were you involved in any committees on that, and what can you give us any insight on what happened behind the scenes there?
Yeah, I was one of the guys. The ultimate Freddie and Fannie thing happened in '05, where it became apparent that there was a bubble being created, and there was a bill that was passed in the Banking Committee, which I was involved with, which I voted for, to reform Freddie and Fannie. That was really the first effort to go after Fannie and Freddie. There were other things in the past, but as far as that was the first effort. And there was a huge lobbying effort on the part of those organizations to come in. I remember the guy that used to felt like he was in my office once a month. Frank Raines was his name. He was the former Clinton budget secretary or something like that, I think he was, and he left the Clinton administration, went over to Fannie Mae and ran that operation. And it was obvious to at least the Republicans on the committee that this was a serious problem. And I remember, in fact, I can tell a story. About a month and a half ago, I was up in Old Forge, Pennsylvania. I'm sure all of you know where Old Forge, Pennsylvania is. It's home of Old Forge Pizza. They have a very unique style of pizza that they make there, and it's called Old Forge Pizza. But I was up there at one of the pizza places and having a little gathering of folks, and a guy walks up to me. His name is Charlie, and he's sitting right in front of the media. I hadn't seen him since I'd left the Senate. He said, I came up to here. He just walked up to me and said, "How you doing?" He says, "I came up to apologize to you." And I said, well, "Okay, remind me." He said, "Well, in 2005 and 2006, I was the head of the Pennsylvania Builders Association, and I came into your office and lobbied for expanding the role of Freddie and Fannie. And you said, no way, I'm not going to do that, that I'm actually supporting putting constraints on their portfolio and limiting their exposure, trying to get more private sector involvement in the mortgage industry, and reforming and cleaning up that mess that we saw brewing there." And he said, "I want you to know we had a knockdown drag on your office, and we supported you in every campaign because you're a strong pro business candidate. You were good for the home building industry. But we basically said, we couldn't support you if you didn't help us in this area." And you said, "I'm sorry. I'm gonna support putting limits on Fannie and Freddie." In fact, I was one of 24 people to sign a letter. And if you read that letter, the 24 senators that we sent to Harry Reid and said, you have to let us bring this bill up, or we're going to have a financial calamity. And so I've got a pretty strong track record of being out there and seeing that this was a problem. We tried to get it passed, and folks like Harry Reid, Barack Obama, Joe Biden filibustered that so it would not be able to come up and get passed, and as a result, we have the problems we have today. What else? We have a copy of that letter. So we can get it. Why don't we get it so we can post it up on the website? Yeah, Jane.
I've watched you in your debates. I've watched you sit on the far right and sit on the far left. I want you in the middle.
Well, that means you all have, when you get phone calls from pollsters, say me. Get your friends to do the same.
My question is, when we're talking about the different tax realignments that some of these different people have come up with, can you talk a little bit about what you would like to see happen here?
Yeah. The plan I put together is similar to some of the plans that have been out there. The key for me, and it's always been the key for me, is tax simplification. getting rid of the huge complexity of the federal tax code, both the corporate tax and the personal income tax. And so what I've proposed is a corporate tax first that cuts the rate from 35% in half and eliminates basically all exemptions, exclusions. So the small business guy here in South Carolina is going to pay the same corporate rate as GE. GE has, as you know, in GE they have teams of IRS agents work at GE, and their offices are right there at GE, and they work together with the GE tax offices, and they're constantly having tax. So they have this constant interaction with the IRS, and they try to maximize their tax situation. I can't blame them for that. They're taking the code and they're doing what they can to limit their exposure under the tax code. Because of its complexity, it helps if you've got teams of people to mine the complexity for the benefit of the of that tax base. Well, of course, most small businesses don't have that, and as a result, they end up paying the higher percentage taxes that the GEs don't pay. Well, if we simplify the corporate tax, make it when I say flat tax, it would be a flat rate, but also a simplified rate. Then we change that dynamic. The same thing when it comes to the personal tax. I want to keep in place 5 provisions of if you wanted to, tax deductions or exclusions or credits, whatever you want to call them, in place, and then take the rest of the code and just eliminate all those deductions, exemptions, encouragements, bells, whistles, and keep it to a very basic tax. I happen to believe, and I know I'm somewhat maybe alone in the Republican field on this. I really believe that we need to have that I believe in a 3-rate tax, 10, 20, 30%. I'm not for a single rate, because I think that ends up shifting the tax burden too much to folks in the middle of America. I mean, that's every plan that you look at that goes to a single rate flat tax. It's a huge tax shift to working folks, and not that folks at the upper end are working, but I want to cut their taxes too. It's now at 35%. We'll cut it to 30%. But I believe in a simple and sort of Reagan model of lower rates and simplification. Reagan didn't have a 1-rate tax either. So the 5 things that I want to keep in place are the charitable deduction, the deduction for home interest, for health insurance, for pension benefits, and for children. Those 5 things. I eliminate everything else, including state and local taxes. Having a deduction for state and local taxes is a huge subsidy to California and New York, who have huge state taxes, and so lower tax states like South Carolina end up paying more taxes because they can write off their big tax bills from New York and California. We'd be doing the people of New York and California a long-term favor if we don't allow them to write off those expenses because because it encourages the states to increase their taxes. So that's the basic plan. The differentiator for me is that I focus my plan on trying to get a particular sector of the economy jump-started and going, and that's the manufacturing sector of the economy. Every other plan, I think these guys are in a competition to get the Wall Street Journal to say nice things about them because they're looking for sort of this macroeconomic model. I'm looking at how we can take folks in America who aren't working or getting paid low-wage jobs and see if we can increase that mobility so they can go from lower-paid jobs to good-paying jobs in the middle. And I'm talking mostly about skilled and semi-skilled workers who are, because the manufacturing base of our economy has left, and we've gone from 21% of the population of this country being employed in manufacturing down to 9%. We need to do something to create opportunities for these workers who are now, underemployed as a result of this economy. So how do we do it? In last debate, Mitt Romney, or maybe it was the debate before, said he wants to have a trade war with China. I don't want to have a trade war with China. I want to have a structure in this country where we can compete and beat China. We'll get those jobs back because we have a competitive marketplace where manufacturers can come here and make money.